in my latest video, someone's mentioned the consent form. Still working on it. Still forging ahead with it. It's coming out. As far as time goes and timing of releasing it and sending it out, everyone's sending it out and dropping it into letterboxes and however we want to spread this thing around, it's probably advantageous not to do it right now, purely because we can't. It'd be hard to get people's attention. I find just trying to talk to people, just generally that I've spoken to before, just out and about, people just aren't interested at the moment because they just don't want to know about it. So to try and sell something to them, even though it's for them against who's trying to get them, it's really still quite difficult to do. So it's probably better off to wait until the shit's going to hit the fan during winter time, because look, the wheels are falling off this thing. They have just absolutely fallen off. I had a video ready to go about, our ScoMo and his latest one said, we haven't got a timeline anymore. And that's in stark contrast to we'll all be done by October. Gladys and her hubs that she was going to set up. By the way, I think those hubs, these mass vaccination hubs, I saw a video over in America where they're doing it in a car park and people were actually turning up. I couldn't believe it. But so I think Australians will be turning up to car parks, taking a detour from their way to work or wherever they're going to go and get a jab. They won't even get tested. They're not going to go and get a jab. But what that does is that takes it out of the doctors' premises, because a few doctors, from prior, a lot of the doctors, I'll just correct myself there, were not going along, not even getting the jab themselves. First responders weren't getting it. So I dare say they're not really, unless people are silly enough to turn up to an invite and sign the form without too much pressure, I don't think they're doing too much of the sales work. In fact, I read a story where some doctor, actually I might have heard on the radio, were concerned about getting sued. Well, they can't be sued because if you sign a consent form, you're approving it yourself. We've mentioned that before. So those mass vaccination hubs, I think that's to try and just have someone in a mask who you don't know who it is. You turn up in your car, like I saw at the States, get jabbed, off they go. Hey, it's all gone wrong. Who did that again? I think that's their strategy with these mass vaccination hubs. Gladys even said, we're still going to maintain our 100 sites, which is at medical centres that people aren't going to and doctors don't really want them to go to. So I think that's how they're dealing with it. Just another thing too, is I saw a story and I can't find it again, and it was about the composition of the people in hotel quarantine. Apparently 14% aren't Australians. And they were a bit vague in the story. Oh, God, I wish I could find it, as to who they were. Something about, some overseas students or something might be coming back, trickling back, or then they said visa approved workers. But I still thought all that was canned. So I'm a bit concerned that they're sneaking people into the country to end up at these mass vaccination hubs. That's just speculation. But I would really love to find that story again. All right, I won't labour on too much. One of the benefits of delaying it has been that we've got more statistics to use against them. So this was only up till October. Now we've got the full 2020 number of deaths. And as you can see down here, 141,116 deaths occurred. Now, only 27 died of COVID, and that's according to their stats, directly of it. And they met the other stats up to 909 are to do with dementia, heart disease, but even taken it up to 909. So what, it's gone from 140,000 to 141,000. That's their pandemic. That's their what do you call it? Their ridiculous put 1 million people out of work. I mean, the measures that they went to, and this has been the result. See, the longer this thing goes, the harder it is for them. Well, they haven't made the case. All they've done is just had hysterical reporters using ridiculous adjectives along with those press conferences with Dan Andrews going, it's a wicked virus. Yeah, well, is it deadly? Is it harmful? Oh, it's wicked. Look what it's made us do. No, you did that. The virus has done nothing, and we know that. So I was watching PK's vid on the, I like those round table ones. I've watched them after the fact. And, yeah, he gets some really good discussions going and good comments that come up. So, and he was talking about Dan Andrews, and he's got a theory that he could be dead. I haven't seen him for a long time, and he raised a really good point. Like, why he's the state's premier? How can it's a bit like that guy over in Africa that ended up disappearing for about 4 weeks and then was dead. Oh yeah, he died of natural causes. Oh, really? So yeah, this whole Dan Andrews thing. It's yeah, it's yeah. Watch PK's roundtable. Have a really good discussion on it. Anyway, back to this. So the timing of it, hard to get people's attention, and we'd really be showing our hand. And then they've got plenty of time to either shut down all the videos and try to track down any how it's being distributed, and they could really work against it. Whereas the video, I got 105,000 views on one of my videos on my original channel, and it was right at the start when everyone had the shits with this thing, when they were putting everyone out of work and everyone's looking for answers, and I put up a I do not consent form, and it got 105,000 views, and went to Ray Hadley. Ray Hadley mentioned it on his show, but he bagged it, of course. But it was 100% correct in what was in the document. People could see that. I mean, no, it was non-self-evident. This was way back in April or May last year, but people really responded because they were being affected. So again, the timing of releasing this one will be. I can just put out a couple of versions early, and if people want to send it off, they can. Actually, I might even do that. But I really want to have it fully completed. It's a documenting progress, because more data keeps coming along and more ridiculous stories. And this John Skerritt guy, we can ask him the question now. Well, who paid the $1,000 that you mentioned, and start showing that he's not a credible authority. So that's where I'm at with this. So I just ask people to be patient, and I will get to it. Like everyone else, I've got a life outside of this. It takes up a lot of my time, and I just kind of squeeze this in when I can, especially late at night, working on a document. So but it's coming. It's 100%. Look, my family fate is tied to everyone else's. I've got a vested interest in this. The fewer people that get this jab, the more people that don't get it, we're in the majority, and we always want to stay in the majority. If they can get a lot of people to take it, they can then play everyone else off against each other. Even if things go wrong for them, people might be resentful. People can be a bit funny. Oh, well, they're now fine. They were the smart ones. I don't like that at all. So yeah, it's good. We need to make sure. But look, that's happening anyway. With this whole time frame just falling apart. And this isn't here. I know over in France, they've got less than 10% take up. And in Germany, it's about 12%. Like 90% of people are either seeing through it, or just couldn't be bothered because they're not sick, and they just don't trust this stuff. And all of this blood clot, all trying to guide us towards. I noticed that the government has said they're not going to even take submissions from the Johnson & Johnson one. They're going to have the Novavax one. So that's the exact same as the Pfizer. Now, that doesn't mess about in stuffing up with your genetics. The other one uses an adenovirus. So I don't know if these blood clots are just manufactured. They could be, or they might not be. But they're serving the purpose of taking people away from the AstraZeneca one. So it might not be producing the spike protein, or the spike protein isn't as how they want it. So they're guiding everyone back to the Pfizer, because the Pfizer one, it's just a liposome, it's just the mRNA, bang, straight into your cell, bang, there's a spike protein doing all the damage. Now, I've been watching videos and still doing some research on that, as I was on top of what I've already done. And, this spike protein, it doesn't just sit there. I mentioned in my videos, if this cell is producing the spike protein, what isn't it producing? How's that going to affect the body? That's a question for Skerritt. And which cells is it? It's an intramuscular injection, not supposedly injected into the bloodstream, but obviously it does, because the blood clots. So once it gets into the blood, where's it going? All of these liposomes. And this spike protein, it's not just inert. It's interactive with not just the immune system, but other parts of, it's inside you. It's stuffing you up. And again, watching PK's vid, he was speculating that it's going to actually produce the virus. And who's to say it won't? Who's to say? Because with a label exemption, see, a label limits, it's an inclusive thing. It's and Romney Stewart's inclusio exclusio maxim, which I learned from him and Rowan, is that if you include something, you exclude everything else. So with a label exemption, without a label exemption, if they say, this is what's in it, then that's all that can be. So it would have produced a spike protein and whatever damage. But when they've got an exemption on the label, then whatever's on there means nothing. So they can stick whatever they like. So you could have this mRNA spike protein, but they could be producing any kind of spike protein. It'll be interesting to see whether this Skerritt monster gives an exemption, label exemption to Novavax, because I did see one that he gave for AstraZeneca. So yeah, and look, that could, like I said, could be a red herring, that whole AstraZeneca one. But this Pfizer thing, they want as much distance between Australia, I guess, themselves, the regulators, and the CSL, Commonwealth Serum Laboratories. Mind you, they're owned by the hedge funds, if you look that up. They want as much distance. So if it's manufactured overseas, because for some reason they don't say we can manufacture AstraZeneca here, but due to the technology we can't do the Pfizer one. Well, they could just show us how to do it, we could do it. But there's something about this Pfizer and the Novavax. They're keeping a big distance between sort of the industry and the government and what it's going to and how it's going to interact with the people. Because ultimately, this thing, you can pretty much, I'll just sort of mention that the population of the world was, I was going to do a video on this, but I'll just make mention of it now. It's up 7 billion. It's going up. If you look at a graph, it's going up exponentially. I think 60 or 70 million. So the question is, do the trillionaires who've got everything to lose if overpopulation does somehow degrade the thing? And look, eventually it will. It's like rabbits in a field. You can't fill it up. The field doesn't get any bigger. Earth's not getting any bigger. But there's no discussion with us or the people or how that's going to be handled. They're just taking it upon themselves. So, well, that's what I believe they're doing, because the question is, okay, so there's 7 billion and rising. All they cared about is impact on the planet of humanity. What? And they think that there's not enough. They think it's not going up fast enough. So they want this jab to come in and make it go up faster than it would have, except for this virus. I mean, when this virus, if it was what they said it was, would do what they wanted to do. And if it virus naturally, I guarantee you, if there was a virus that naturally dropped the population from 7 billion to 4 billion, if they had any protections, they would only protect themselves and not give it to us, and they would be celebrating. These trillionaires, these, Larry Fink, BlackRock and Vanguard investors, who you don't know, they're a few of the families, but there'd be a lot more than just the Rothschilds and the Warburgs and the Rockefellers. Be more than them. They'd be popping champagne corks all over the place. So, I think, what PK said on his channel implied that it's, and speculated that this thing could produce the virus, or at least weaken our immune systems to something they're going to release. That's more like it, because there's no way they want the population to go up faster than what it is, when all they're talking about is climate change and environmental problems. So that's another thing that I mentioned to people as well in passing. Although, like I said, it's pretty hard to get people's attention on this thing these days. People are they're just glad to be rid of this thing for a while. Anyway, so that's pretty much it for this one. Timing, I reckon I'll get a few interim ones put out, but I reckon about mid-May to end of May. That's when things are really going to start. They're going to start these short, sharp lockdowns, and they're going to just increasing the intensity and the brutality that's going to come with it. And when people are just going, oh, for fuck's sake, and they're going to be really heightened and looking for answers, like back when I got that 105,000 views. People are at that point again. That's a good time to attack this. So, look, I appreciate people really want to see this thing come out. Again, look, statistics it's just self-evident. 140 to 141,000 does not justify all that ridiculous response and getting jabbed with something that's not even approved. That's the argument on risk versus benefit. And here's just some interesting information here. I'll just pop down to excess deaths. They try to include COVID as though it's made it for 140 was an excess death. Now, this is doctor certified deaths, COVID infections. Now, here's how sneaky they get. This is meant to be the mortality statistics. See it in the URL up there. Now, they don't put the COVID mortality. I might have mentioned this before, because that would look ridiculous. They just put the cases, and they say that that's caused excess mortality, the cases. Yet they say the symptoms are the same as a cold, not as bad as a flu, but a bit worse than a cold. They even tell you that. See, they tell you everything. It's just the disconnect between the information that appears on their websites, the actual information, and then how it's presented. Like, I got a video taken down on YouTube. I think it might have been my last strike, where all I did was show information from Australian government websites. And they said, well, they got me. Well, this isn't misinformation. The actual media reports, if you put any of them up, well, they got you there, because that is misinformation. But this is actually what is happening, and they have to keep this accurate, because they in a couple hundred years' time, they don't want someone going, well, hang on, you fraudulently took all of the wealth and assets of our nation through this bullshit. Now, they want the whole thing to be continuous, and for that consent, and that, look, we gave everyone the information, it was all there if you could find it. Well, we're finding it, and we're going to put it up. So there's respiratory diseases. So now we've got the full flu. I needed that because the last video I put up, so we've got the full influenza and pneumonia. So you've got there 2,122 deaths due to influenza. So it's more than the COVID already, even more than their bullshit figure. Like, that's 2,120. That's who died of influenza and pneumonia, not someone with dementia who had pneumonia. That they put down as a dementia. Otherwise, the dementia wouldn't appear on this web page, and it does appear, same as heart disease appears. So yeah, we can present all that. And it's such a strong argument, and people just put it back on them, and then the pressure goes back on them to stop these ridiculous lockdowns, because that's going to be the battle we're going to fight. And it's a good, and this vaccination, or the jab, what they call a vaccination, people are already on our side with that. You can tell that right now. Like, no one's just turning up. So as soon as you give them justification for a position they've already got, they're going to grab hold of that anyway. All right, this has gone on for long enough. 17 minutes, that's way too long. All right, so like I said, I'll put out some interim ones, but ultimately around May is when we're going to have to hit them hard with this, with all of these mortality statistics and all the other information that they provide. So, especially on the TGA website and some of those product information sheets, some of the unexplained. And look, even in the videos that I've recorded, you've got these officials saying on the World Health Organization website, yeah, we're just getting more and more data. Well, you're telling people to take a jab, and then you're admitting that, yeah, we need more data. We're hungry for more data. Well, you're not sure. So if something happens to someone now, well, yeah, it could, because you're not sure. So, yeah, like I said, it hasn't been fully approved. And that's what the argument's going to be. Yep, you fully approve something, we'll give it consideration. You answer all these questions, we'll give it consideration. We're not going to give consideration just because of blackmail and coercion via... Oh, I also like that. Let's ramble off for just a bit longer. This, you can't fly. I mean, what's the connection between flying? I mean, people are interacting with each other. Sure, on an airplane, it's a bit confined, but it's no more confined than a bus, a train. Why is this you can't fly bullshit? And I mentioned before that, okay, the jab isn't mandatory from the government, so how can Alan Joyce make it mandatory? Well, has he got extra doctors? They've got extra information. Well, they give it to the government, and then, well, they can't make it mandatory. They can't, because they know it'll take on all of the responsibility, legal, for anything, for what's going to happen to people. Like I just mentioned a little while ago, population's at 7 billion, it's rocketing up. These trillionaires, if they can find a way to knock off a lot of us, that's what they're going to do. So, all right, that's it for this one. And yeah, like I said, interim one coming up. Okay, I've got to stop before 20 minutes. It's 19:51:52. All right, that's it for this one.